Welcome to Hops News, the trusted source in beer culture news. Here's your host, Jay Brew, with special guests, the Hoppy Mommy, Lucky, and Mash.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Hops News. We've got a great episode lined up for you guys tonight. A very cool guest who's going to join us tonight. We've got Mike O'Toole. No, just kidding. We don't have the president of the company. But we got his right-hand man. We've got a gentleman that's going to join us from Great Western Malting Company out of Vancouver. So looking forward to talking to him and getting to know a little bit more. I would dare say, if I was a betting man, I would say the majority of the beer that people consume, they're probably a part of the fermentable sugars in a large part of the way. Like the majority of the beer probably produced here. So I'm sure Mike will give us some stats on that and has some great information on that. I'm looking forward to hearing about that because I would imagine they're pretty deep in that market space. But before we get to him, let's check in with Hoppy first down in Orlando, Florida. Hoppy, how are things going in Florida? What's the gold bond index today?
It's not too bad. It's been thunderstorming all day, so gold bond isn't too high. It's nice down here, but I'm actually drinking a beer from Microphone, so I'm not even drinking Florida beer tonight. This is a fantastic double New England IPA, so from Elk Grove Village, Illinois. But we're getting ready to head down to the Keys tomorrow, so I might have to pick up some Florida Keys brewing beer to send you guys. Maybe
Nice.
in for the Hops News family care package next month.
Yeah, and
next month?
August, yeah.
Oh, wow.
sure. And make sure you pack some gold bond for the Keys for Josh. He will definitely need it.
I will just be in the water. We'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that, I will tell you, Brew she wasn't on all of the episodes where I had her beer, but man, she sent some fantastic beer from Chicago.
Yes,
Happy
for sure.
to hear it.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable. I've definitely enjoyed it myself. Well, Hoppy, enjoy that trip, man. You're putting in the miles during the summer. You got out of the pandemic and you went traveling. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Keys isn't that far, so it's only 3.5, 4 hours to get to Key Largo from Orlando. And usually we do it every summer. We were supposed to go the Sunday that literally everything shut down, like the entire world shut down. I was like, well, I guess we aren't going to the Keys anymore. So we're way, way, way overdue for a Keys trip. So yeah,
Nice.
Finally scratching that itch.
Joining family down there, I'm sure.
Yep. My mom will be there, so she's meeting us.
Awesome. That'll be a good trip. Well, good to have you back on, Hoppy. Awesome stuff coming out of the Geeks, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. Let's go check in with Brew up in Lake Bluff, Illinois. Brew, how is things going in Lake Bluff tonight?
Things are going well. It's really stuffy and hot in here. And I can see in the video that my face is red. So, going to be a fun call tonight. But otherwise, going well. I have loads of friends in town right now, so I've been pretty busy. Got in some, Chicago bar hangs.
Look out this girl with all her friends. Humble.
I know. I have 2 friends, so, I'm rolling in it. Pretty exciting times for me. Since they're in town, got to go do some Chicago things, which meant that I obviously went to Dovetail. I go there all the time. If you learn one thing from me being on this show, you guys have to go. It's just a good brewery. Otherwise, I got loads of beer from Hoppy the other day, so I need to get those in the fridge, hopefully for next week to try. I'm very excited. And then I just booked a trip in a few weeks, and I'm going to be in Denver for a few days, and then in Napa area. So if anyone has any suggestions, throw them at me because I have not planned.
Wow.
So please.
Go to Lady Justice. You got to go to Lady Justice and Fiction Brew.
I know.
Yeah.
I have a list of breweries that.
All of a sudden. Do we have suggestions?
Well, I have
know
a
those
few.
suggestions, peasant.
I have a few, and I technically have family in Denver, but I'm purposely not staying with them, so I can go off and go do all my own beer things. So
Wow, Dom Toretto would be so disappointed in you.
send me all your suggestions and food because I'm worthless at food. So come at me, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a good trip coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't really taken a trip in a long time, so I'm really looking forward to that. Otherwise, today I'm drinking one of my favorite beers that I've tried in a long time. It's from Off Color, another Chicago hang I mention a lot.
Yeah, they're so good.
This one's they're so fun. This one is Troublesome. It's a Goza. It's one of the best Gozas I've had outside of Germany. I wish it was a bit saltier, but it's still really nice. So like, I'll have to get you guys some of these if I can because it's just phenomenal.
I want to be able to say that one time. This is the best Goza I've had that outside of Germany.
Yes, it makes me sound like such a dick. So like,
No, that sounds awesome. As someone who is supposed to be going to Munich next month and is not because of COVID, like, yes.
Oh, I keep on forgetting about that.
Yeah.
Someday. Next year you'll get there.
one day.
You'll get there.
Everybody decides to go because it's finally, Oktoberfest is finally happening again and it'll just be extra slammed.
Oh yeah, it's going to be like a chaos year when you do get there. Like I can only imagine what it'll actually be like.
Well, good to have you back with us again, Brew, and I'm with you tonight. It is awfully sticky here in the mountains of North Carolina. We live in where I live here in Blowing Rock, the microclimate is actually a rainforest, and it feels like one out here today. It is sticky. I almost made the command decision of doing this indoors, but I only get a few months out of the year that I can sit out here like this, so I'm going to enjoy it. Let's go check in with MASH there in Mountain Home, Idaho. MASH, how are the kids tonight?
Well, one is sick, but yet they've been beating each other up all day. So I've been hanging out, reading comic books all day, and tending my children in my farm. We thought we lost a chicken yesterday. A chicken somehow got through our gate, and we couldn't find her. And then we found a cat instead. So I was like, oh God, did this cat eat the chicken? But no, we found it. Everything's good. My egg supply is running great. No, everything's good. I just, we're gearing up for some good stuff. I got some stickers in from the geeks. We've been selling shirts. I'm drinking God's nectar himself, some high quality H2O, because I guess I'm just, my body is the essence of health right now. Picked a bad time for that.
One of the main beer ingredients is water.
It is. So it's about 105 degrees here, and it's fire season. So you go outside and your lungs burn because all the forest fires that are around are just kind of rolling on down in here.
Excellent.
And filling my lungs with the good stuff. So pretty soon I'm going to sound like, what is that, Marge Simpson's sisters or whatever they are?
Yeah.
Around like, go get me a butt, kid. So. Here by the end of summer, it's just gonna get worse.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you caught the Geeks episode this past week on Monday, if you were lucky enough to get the first half hour of it being published, you had a great what do we call that? A great
so it's like we introduced a little bit of a horror film into our episode apparently, because
also known as parenting.
I had edited this out. We got, like, for all those people who like, I want kids. Well, if you caught that, that's enough to kind of tell you that maybe you don't necessarily want kids as bad as you might think, because my daughter didn't get sung Sunshine before bed, and the injustice that we caused upon that 2-year-old's life was that of a blood-curdling scream that rivals any sort of horror film. In fact, I might have an agent calling me to put her in the next Halloween movie just by how badly she screamed, and the microphone picked it up from like across the house. That's how loud it was.
And the best part, Mash got back and said, I'll edit that out, and then Hoppy and him carried on the conversation, but needless to say, that didn't make the cutting room floor.
Like, I edited it out, but for some reason it didn't save, and oh God. And it was a big episode. We had Thunder Levin, the writer from Sharknado 1 through 4 on, and so, but everything's fixed. It's up now. We're good. And life is good, man. I got a PT test in the morning,
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I haven't ran in yesterday was the first day I ran in 3 weeks because I sprained my ankle pretty bad on the basketball court because of course I did. I'm fragile. I'm made of glass. And
you're 30. I mean, you're practically dead.
I'm practically the crypt keeper at this point. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Man, I remember those days vividly. I feel for you, man.
I can't wait till they're over. Somebody please offer me like $100,000 job. Let me out. I'd get out tomorrow, but my wife's very much against it. So,
yeah, I bet. Good luck with that. I see why you're not drinking a beer tonight, for sure.
Yeah. I gotta hydrate, friends. Hydrate.
Mash, the most underappreciated aspect of podcasting is the editing.
Oh, it's just the worst. Like
It is.
if we made money off this, I would definitely hire somebody just to edit, because sometimes I just sit down on the computer with my coffee and I'm like, another day editing, another day Dunkin' Donuts just hits the ignore button on me. They just throw me on the Instagram and ignore me.
Maybe we can get some shots of you editing at your computer with your coffee cup on a regular basis. Maybe that'll spur them.
Maybe, or maybe if I make it on that game show, I'm gonna rock my Dunkin' Donuts fit. So maybe that'll be the cry for help.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to ask about that. What the hell is that about? I don't think I've ever heard of supermarket sweeps. What is it?
Oh my god, you've never heard
What?
of supermarket sweep? Like you stand up there, you guess like how much groceries cost, and then you go find like certain items in the aisles of the grocery store, and then if you like make it to the end, you're like filling up the carts with as much groceries as you can, and it's basically like if you get the most dollar amount, you like win that on top of other money. It's like the most ridiculous. They did it back in the early 90s. They just redid it recently, and I randomly applied because my wife and I love it, and they left me a voicemail about possibly going on. So
Mash, you are a man of many talents. We're going to have a game show celebrity. We're going to have a Dunkin' Donuts ambassador. You're making your own beer. You're getting
true.
a collaboration with a brewery. You work for Bottle Share. I mean,
look, you got to.
the sky's the limit for this guy. Somebody hire this guy before he becomes president.
You got to make things happen in life. Nothing's just going to fall into your lap. So you got to get out there and get it. And yeah, hopefully next month we will, the brewery we brew the beer before the tasting in August, because I'd love to get that beer out to everybody. So there's going to be more to come on that soon.
Love it. And I was just taking a drink there of my beer. Love it, Mash. Glad you could join us. Looking forward to hearing about the supermarket suite some more.
Hell yeah.
Let's go check in with Michael Heinrich, the National Sales Manager of Great Western Malting. And I believe, Michael, your signature on your email that I saw said Vancouver, Washington. Is that correct? Is that where you're joining us from tonight?
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Michael. I will tell you, I spent a little bit of time in the beer industry, and I would, just out of what I know and the people I talked with and dealt with in the beer industry, you've got to be like the cornerstone supplier for fermentable sugars, right? You guys got to be like the world leader in turning barley and all those grains into alcohol.
It's a short list, but we are among the top. I wouldn't say we've got the most, but that's an evolving scenario. But,
yeah. I'm sure it's one of those things that swing back and forth every once in a while. So it's got to be interesting being a part of at least one of the bigger players in that market space in a pretty cool industry that is beer and that we celebrate obviously on Hops News.
Yeah, well, we very much appreciate you having us. I know we mentioned kind of unsung heroes a little bit earlier, and I think about malt kind of in that context. It's very commonly an unsung hero in beer. Hops get a lot of interest, and so does yeast and water as well. But I welcome the conversation around malt and specialty malts, and I think it's something that frankly there should be more discussion and understanding around. So appreciate you having us, and I'll look forward to contributing what I can to your discussion.
Yeah, for sure. You'll contribute a lot. So the first question that we always ask guests, and I apologize because this isn't, I don't believe, on one of the questions, but it's kind of a standardized question. What was your first beer, and when was it?
Oh, it's the first craft beer that was of note. I won't count the things I did underage, of course. But
well, we want those stories. That's the story we look forward to. Is the very first beer for, like most of us, it was grandfather's or uncle's PBR or Coors or Miller High Life or something. Do you remember your first beer?
Oh, it was Miller Lite. Yeah. Way back, my father, when he was younger, he even drove a forklift down at the Legacy facility in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So nice. He long since left that. That was when he was a younger man. But I grew up in Miller Coors country, so that was a natural staple for those looking for that kind of beverage.
Well,
But my love for beer really didn't start there, although I do have a lot of respect for their production practices. They make, it's a world-class production process. It's a whole nother podcast potentially there. But
Right.
Bell's Two Hearted Ale was the big difference maker for
Oh.
me. And it actually inspired me to start brewing and reading about beer, and ultimately, lead me down the path to this industry in the long term. But with a little corner shop near my house, my first place living outside of my parents' house at University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I got my undergraduate degree. And sure, $10 was a lot to spend at the time on a six-pack, but my roommates and I would regularly take the leap, and kind of have never looked back. It's an outstanding beer then, and it's an outstanding beer now.
Mhm.
yeah, for
That's-
sure.
Yeah.
Our-
It's a
our-
lot of people.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so many people have cited Two Hearted Ale as like one of their
Yeah.
like
Gateway.
beginnings. Yeah, like
Yeah.
so many people talk about it. And I even remember like one of the first times I had it. I mean, like, this is really good. This is different. Like,
Yeah.
it's just one of those beers that so many people have a story about.
Oh,
Yeah, I
It
remember
was-
my first one was in Sarasota.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say it's so funny you mentioned taking the leap for $10 for like a six-pack, whereas it's just funny where you look at that and then now it's like, oh, $20 for a
cheap.
4-pack. All right, fine. I'll grab that, whatever. And then it's like, man, to pay $10 for a nice big pack of beer again, like you don't see that too often. Although I will say in
Right.
Idaho, they actually are pretty good about 6-packs, 12-ounce cans at $10, but just
Yeah,
one
but
of
a
those funny
12
things.
pack of Budweiser was 10.
Yeah.
So
oh,
yeah,
exactly,
we made
yeah.
that. They gradually punched us in the wallet.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Bell's in that brewery. I just seen them post a tweet. I think this was yesterday, and I'll show the picture. So Bell's posted this tweet yesterday of this picture, and they said, our new 800-barrel fermenters are just crossing under the Mackinac Bridge, headed to their brewery. Bell's has come a long way in the beer industry when you're bringing in 800-barrel fermenters on a ship that size to your brewery. So it's interesting that you say that, Mike, because I grew up in Michigan, born and raised in Battle Creek, just a little bit down the road from Kalamazoo, and Bell's was frankly one of my first as well, along with the founders. But they're kind of it's kind of funny because we talk about on our show a lot. We talk about the Sierra Nevadas and the Boston lagers and that sort of thing of kind of being the crossover beer for a lot of people. But I think Bell's and those guys definitely are one of them for a large portion of us as well. They produce a great product, and obviously bringing in 800-barrel fermenters, they have not reached their limit on distribution at this point.
Well, that Hop Slam is something I think everybody still looks forward to every year.
Yeah, and that was one of the beers that they mentioned actually in that tweet. They'll be able to put out some more Hop Slam in the coming future. So it's one of those beers that used to be really, really hard to find. You could only get it in Kalamazoo at their tap room, and now you're starting to see it on some shelves more often and more frequently. So it'll be interesting. Mike, it's kind of funny you say that, mentioned in Milwaukee. We have a co-host who's not on tonight, Lucky, actually produces a podcast out of Milwaukee because he lives up there, born and raised as far as I know, and talks a lot about that beer industry and kind of the history behind it. And I kind of tell him the same thing. What these beer behemoths nowadays have done to beer production and being able to produce beer on that scale is unbelievable.
Really is, and particularly with styles that a lot of these breweries are doing. Bell's Two Hearted Ale, that's a tough beer to ship, and to have the kind of reach that a brewery like that grows to experience and maintain the integrity of that product throughout that distribution channel is no easy feat, and a lot of respect for that. So no, they've done an outstanding job.
For sure. So, Mike, next question we have for you, the next avenue is, what kind of got your start into the beer industry? Obviously you're in an industry that supports the beer industry pretty heavily, but was there a career path that led you to that position where you're at?
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be a brewer by all personal intentions. My background, my schooling's in genetics and horticulture. Plant sciences was my forte in school, and my passion was homebrewing. I've been homebrewing for 20 years now. I had a I did juice manufacturing, food processing, and did that for a while after school with my degree, but ultimately kind of worked my way to the top of that ladder and decided this isn't for me. I wanted to pursue something I'm passionate about, something that really is, kind of art meets science is how I see brewing. And I went back to school at UC Davis for their Master Brewers program. I actually waited in line for that program for 3 years to get in because they take 40 students a year. And went through a very intensive course there. I'm still under the tutelage of Dr. Lewis and Charlie Bamforth. Charlie's with Sierra Nevada now as their senior quality guy. But very, very fortunate to have learned from those folks in that group. I took my IBD, the Institute of Brewing and Distilling, over in London and took my examinations and passed them. So I've got a diploma in brewing. And then with that went up to Great Western, actually. I intended to go full on into the brewing industry. And because of my background in plant sciences, combined with what I had learned through UC Davis, I had a unique opportunity to come to Great Western Malting through some connections to actually manage operations up here in Vancouver, be part of the operations team. So I was directly responsible for managing the malt house, producing 120,000 metric tons a year of malt. So it was kind of jumping right into it, and had a blast doing it. And nothing quite like getting, a 135 metric ton report card coming to you, two to three batches a day, typically at that size. So it was full on production malt mode. My responsibilities were really quality driven, ultimately kind of controlling the malting process. But sorry, a little off topic, but yeah, I intended to go in to be a brewer, and it was my background in schooling that kind of made it a good fit. Maltsters walk the line between farmers and brewers, distillers, and even some food processors. So it's helpful to speak a couple languages that way.
I love that.
You still brew?
Oh yeah. I have a half barrel pilot system, a little Sabco Brew Magic. I got 6 fermenters and a handful of bright tanks, and really just kind of have fun with it when I can. But I've got young ones these days, so not as often as I used to.
Yeah, they don't stay out of the kitchen or wherever you're brewing. Yeah.
I get them milling my grain for me. They run the auger.
Do you have like a malt of choice when you're brewing?
Well, I'm a little biased. I use Great Western Malting when I home brew, but I'll typically use either a basic 2-row base malt or even a Pilsner as a base malt, and then build with specialty malts from there, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish.
We have Brad in the comments. He's a really good friend of ours. He's opening up a brewery down in Spring Hill, Tennessee. He says that he uses all your guys' malts and like a lot of their beers, and his favorite's he likes the Pure California. That's what he says.
Oh, very good. Well, we appreciate the comments. That's it's interesting. We're Pure California we go through great lengths to segregate where we get that barley from, and ultimately, blending these products together is how we get a consistent throughput to it. And we've gone and kind of done ID preserved series, essentially, Pure California being one of them, where we will segregate and preserve that source barley all the way through the process, all the way through shipping and bagging. So it's I still remember when we came out with those 4 products. It was an exercise in and of itself. Traceability.
Yeah, so obviously you head up the national sales team, right? You're the national sales manager. That kind of speaks to Great Western Malting's commitment to the industry. I mean, they've got a guy that's been there, kind of done that, done a lot in the brewing space, especially from the educational side of things. So to have somebody like you that can speak to their consumer and know the language and talk to them, and probably a big part of it, I would imagine, like most salespeople in industries nowadays, you're almost as much as an educator as you are a salesman, because everybody's dealing with different issues and trying to take care of unique problems that different facilities may be having.
You said it very, very well. Yes, to be able to have the quality discussions is very, very important, and the educational aspect around, I mean, this is an agricultural commodity. We're subject to weather and growing conditions, and having an open and transparent conversation with your customers and partners around what Mother Nature's giving you, how you intend to manage it, and what ultimately they can expect within their process if there is variation or if there's not, to have really strong communication and relationships so that you can work together to make sure that their brands are the same and consistent year in and year out. And it's actually been beneficial. I'm actually an adjunct instructor for the Master Brewers program. I teach part of the raw materials section for that, so that's positioned me well. And now I've done it long enough that sometimes the folks purchasing bulk malt may have been a student in the class. So I've been around long enough that I'm coming full circle on a few things. But you're right. Yeah, education and conversation year in and year out's super important. This year's no exception. It's very, very hot and dry.
Well, I know when we talked on the phone, you mentioned that winter barley is kind of becoming more popular. Is that just you mentioned just now the climate too? That's probably because it's not getting as cold in the winters. Are you guys seeing more of that being produced because of that factor?
That's one of the factors for sure. Is the big risk to winter barley, just to preface it, is kill. Is if you don't get the right conditions, if it's too severe of a winter, what was planted and should be about the size of your finger, ideally gets covered with snow that insulates it from the winter conditions. If it doesn't get that, and it experiences a deadly frost, that farmer can't just go and sow spring crop over the top of it. They literally have to go in and rip that field out. Because they will have two crops maturing at two different rates that they won't be able to segregate at all at harvest. And that means that would be very, very problematic from a maltster standpoint. That would not work. Those types of kernels would uptake water at different rates. We'd have a high amount of variability within our process. It would not be good to bring in to a malt house. So there's risk, but that's something that, with global warming, if you need to put a positive spin on it, not that there is one, but it is pushing barley into areas where it didn't grow previously. And that's something, that's continually evaluated really amongst all crops, barley included. And Idaho is a great. I know you're reporting from Idaho, which is great. We have a lot of barley growing with our partners in Idaho at several different elevations. Idaho grows more barley, more malting quality barley than any other state in the U.S. It has year over year. It's kind of it wears the crown. If you're in the community, you kind of know where the best barley comes from. And I'm a little biased that way. There's good barley grown elsewhere, of course, but Idaho makes outstanding golden fields of barley, and we're very happy with the products coming out of there.
Now, I know there's a lot of areas, like Florida included, that's putting a lot of research into growing hops in areas that are not normally common. Like I know University of Florida, they have a big research agriculture thing going on and experimenting with hops, and we're getting a lot more Florida hops. Do you see that with malts at all, or are they sticking to the regions that they're known for?
It depends on the region. Yes, you are seeing it more places. It's coming out in pockets, but there's very specific conditions where it does well, and it needs kind of dry weather conditions at the tail end of the growing season in order to make the crop mature and ready for harvest. Or you can have severe quality issues with brewing.
Okay.
And to your previous question, winter barley's been a great fit for this. Not only from a taking advantage of the winter conditions, but also there's sustainability and environmental benefits, where a winter barley, for example, being that it's planted in the fall, harvested earlier, that means a lot to the farmer. They don't have to, for example, get their tractor into the field in a wet spring. They planted it in the fall, and to the plant, they get a head start. That plant gets a head start. And that plant gets to take advantage of all the spring moisture that's in the ground. So typically a farmer growing winter barley puts at least 2 fewer irrigation runs on that field, which is a cost to them, which has environmental concerns. I mean, the fewer runs, the fewer waterings of a field that you need to do, the less erosion you have, for example, the less, if you are adding anything to that water, that has cost to it. And there are a lot of restrictions that farmers have to adhere to in order to make malting quality barley. So, and additionally, winners yield higher because they got an earlier start, have good access to water, and tend to also come out of the field a little bit earlier, which late fall rains is kind of the number one enemy of a malting quality barley farmer. Because if it rains on a crop while it's out in the fields, that barley, if it absorbs that moisture, can get tricked into basically germinating out there. It'll think it's got good growing conditions, and as such, that kernel is literally a plant at that point, that little seed, and it's respiring, so it's breathing. Even dormant seeds, even dormant barley kernels are respiring, but it's very, very, very slowly. When you get pre-germination through a rain and harvest, that respiration rate increases dramatically. When that harvest then takes place, that barley you're unable to separate it from things that were not germinated out in the field. And our first step in our process is steeping, essentially putting things underwater. And if you're breathing and you get stuck underwater, I think we all know kind of what happens. You will drown the embryos, and a dead kernel can't malt, it can't modify, it can't make enzymes, can't really unlock the package, really do what we need it to do. So it's something we're always watching. Evolving landscape.
Mike, what I've just realized is there's a hell of a lot more to getting the malt to the beer than just picking it out of the field and drying it out and bagging it.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
That gives me a whole new appreciation for what's actually at the start of a beer before we even get it. That's pretty phenomenal that there's that much involved in that process, to be honest with you.
I think one of the things I was surprised is I know nothing about liquor or anything or distilling or anything like that. Is I didn't realize you needed malts for more than beer, that you needed them for liquor and stuff too. So I was surprised when I was looking at your website, I was learning, just in that. And of course, all these questions were coming to me as well. But I saw you guys also do organic malt. Is that becoming more of a common thing? Like how much percentage do you have that's actually organic?
We've got a full line of organic products. Actually, one of the few maltsters that do, particularly on the larger scales. We've got two very large Probat drum roasters here in Vancouver that basically allows us to make a full range of organic specialty malts, as well as organic base malts. So from a tonnage standpoint, I'm not sure off the top what percentage of the overall volume it is. It's quite a bit smaller than a traditional domestic malt stream. But that said, I think from a product standpoint, we have a very wide spread in terms of what's available, and it's continuing to grow from an organic superior Pilsen all the way through organic crystal malts.
Nice. I have noticed like a few years ago, if you got an organic beer, it wasn't the best. It's like non-alcoholic beer, but it's getting much better. And I'm assuming that's because the ingredients are getting better and more easily accessible as well. So I know you had mentioned you kind of do have a favorite malt in when you personally brew, but because you're so well educated in this and you work in malting, I like that you called it maltsters. So are you guys like maltsters?
Yeah, I'm a maltster. I'm a maltster by trade.
Yeah. Like mobster, maltster. I love it. Yeah. Do you find yourself being able to pick up on the malts more than the average person when you drink a beer? Like, can you ever actually like identify, how some, you can identify a citra hop or a cashmere hop. Like, can you identify different malts?
Yes and no. I hope I can do it better than the average consumer, because we run a sensory panel and all of that I'm a part of. But what yeast do to the malt's very different than any of the other raw materials, right? So yeast aren't breaking down hops into some unrecognizable form. So it really, yes, you can pull different malts out, but with the caveat, it depends what they made and how they made it. Are they leaving a clearly identifiable, non-fermentable sugar profile there that we can all pick up on, like caramel, for example, from a crystal malt? That's less fermentable than a starch converted to sugar from a base malt, for example. So I think you'd be able to pick up on those sort of things. But if certain types of, you use a Vienna malt or a light Munich malt, and you're using an aggressive yeast strain and you're taking fermentation, darn near to completion, or maybe you even use a little bit of enzyme to drive down your residual sugars, or you're going for a low carb beer or something, and then it would be very difficult to pull out. And it's actually, arguably, that's more of a color adjustment at that point for that style of beer. So it just depends. You can with certain types.
Gotcha.
So, Mike, you've taken a pretty deep dive already in kind of the science and the very granular details of the malt in the process so far. We all know, I think everybody that drinks beer is probably pretty familiar with hops, because that's kind of, that's what hits you in the mouth. You can smell it. It's kind of what hits the nose and the senses the first thing, and everybody knows, there's either the plant, that gets wet hopped or dry hop processing, and now they're using oils and extracts. Can you kind of share in layman's terms the function of malt, how it starts from the farmer, the process of growing to harvesting, to what you guys do with the barley and the grains, to what the brewer then does with it, to how it becomes in what we drink, out of the cans or out of the tap?
You got it. So here's the 50,000 foot. The farmers will sow typically a spring barley, growing number of winter barley farmers, but they're going to grow a low protein barley, or as low a protein barley as they can. That's AMBA approved. That's the American Malting Barley Association. And in the U.S., there's typically a futures contract associated with it. We use everything we grow down here. So if you don't plant it, you kind of don't have it. So we have a plan in place with our farmers to grow the malt according to our specifications. So you can't use certain insecticides, you cannot use fertilizers. There are a ton of handcuffs on them in order to meet malting quality specifications. So we're very stringent with regards to what's able to be brought into the plant and used to make malt. It will ultimately, farmers from different areas will aggregate in a country elevator their crops. We will do testing on the malt in those country elevators, so we kind of know what we've got out in the field prior to bringing it into the malt house. But in the malt house, it'll go through a series of steps, and the steps depend on what we intend to make with the product. But for its base malt, it's steeping, germination, and kilning are the three steps. And generally speaking, what you're talking about is taking a barley that's off the field and it's maybe 12% moisture, say, and we'll steep it for about 2 days in cylindrical conical tanks that are aerated. It's by fully submersing them and hitting them with air jackets and bubbling up water in them, because that barley's respiring and using up oxygen, all with the goal of raising the moisture content of that kernel up to around 26 to 29% or so on our first immersion. And that's really a magic range for the embryo, where they really get this signal to start growing. And that means that embryo starts producing plant hormones, which trigger other tissues to start synthesizing enzymes and unlocking other enzymes, and kind of doing this whole magical malting process. So after steeping after that first immersion, you'll drain, you'll allow it to air rest, you'll steep it again, you'll raise that moisture content up to around 44. And from there, we take it into germination, and we essentially grow it under very controlled conditions, which is really, that's where the true biochemical transformation is really taking place, where cell walls are getting broken down and starches are being unlocked and enzymes are being created. And it's all really important down the road in the brewing process. So once we've kind of got this package we want in germination, we'll take it to kilning. And kilning is a step where we're applying a very controlled range of temperatures over a certain amount of time to get color, flavor, and really to kind of freeze that product, to create a shelf stable version of that product. We have to be very careful how we dry it down. But for all intents and purposes, that's where we kind of finalize what that malt really is in terms of analysis, color, and flavor, etc. From there, it's going to go through a number of steps of analysis and blending ultimately before shipment, which is probably a little too much detail. But ultimately, when a brewer takes this, they're going to mill it. And this is the primary source of really everything in their beer, for all intents and purposes. I mean, if you were to just use hops, you would have tea. There would be nothing for the yeast to ferment. So the malted barley is providing the fermentable sugar profile typically, and it's also providing the enzymes necessary to take and make that fermentable sugar profile, to make that sugar profile actually fermentable. So you're contributing all these really big non-fermentable sugars, and you have alpha and beta amylase contributed from your malt that then essentially go in and break these down into nice bite-sized little pieces that the yeast are then able to consume to make alcohol. So it's really, it's kind of the perfect package, and brewers have tried to make beer without malted barley, and it just keeps circling right back to malted barley. So.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to take a quick minute to go cover up some beer news here, but definitely appreciate that 50,000 foot view of that malting process and how it ends up in beer. We'll be right back to talk to Michael some more here in just a minute. But meantime, let's go check in with Hoppy and get her beer news for the evening. Hoppy, what's going on in the beer world?
So in the beer world, they are actually, Heineken and New Belgium are two of the breweries that are looking into this, working on concentrated beer. So they're basically cutting the liquid before they ship the beer and then re-adding liquid to it after it has been shipped. It is not a foolproof process yet. Their goal is to cut their carbon footprint and, of course, cut their costs, because they say a lot of the carbon footprint is transferring these huge kegs and bottled beer and all of this. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work. I feel like that could end up having people take advantage of, like, oh, I want to try to get this beer before they add more liquid to it and it's concentrated. I don't know. I feel like I could see some idiot doing that. But Heineken's CEO has said that they want to be carbon neutral by 2040. So this is one of the things that they are researching and trying to do. It's very interesting. I'll post the article in there for anybody who wants to read more on it. But I just, beer's they're constantly researching and changing, and this seems like a crazy idea now, but who knows, 10 years from now, this could be a great way to help the environment and could be commonplace. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, one thing's for sure, they could cut down on a lot of packaging if they can nail this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very interesting idea. It's almost like makes you think of those juices you used to have as a kid that were, you'd get just the solid concentrate and then you put it in there and then you pour the water into it. Like, that's what I'm imagining.
Minute Maid, yeah.
Yes, this like chunk of just like super concentrated, hops, barley, water, no water, yeast, and just, yeah, but some idiot's going to go and eat that. I'm telling you, it'll happen.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go check in with Brew. Brew's got some beer news for us as well. Brew, what's going on in the beer world?
Right. So I think this is a bit older news, but The Guardian recently covered it. So Coors have a new ad campaign, and they seem to be investing in something called targeted dream incubation, which sounds wild. But like, apparently they're encouraging people to watch videos before they go to sleep. And then while they sleep, they have to listen to 8 hours of something they call a soundscape. And apparently this is meant to trigger refreshing dreams of Coors. And like, I know. And like, it sounds so ridiculous and like also a bit terrifying. But at the same time, like, if you're getting paid for this kind of research, I'm pretty sure I'd be pretty down.
Oh, yeah, like, they're paying me. I'm in.
Yeah, like if it's just weird music that's going to make me think of mountains, like I'm actually super into this. Like, I already listen to audiobooks every time I go to sleep, and like I feel like mountain dreams and mountain noises are probably better than Harry Potter audiobooks.
I feel like the river
like Nightmares of Dumbledore.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like this will probably cause less nightmares.
Like, I feel like you would have to pee all night if you hear like the
that's a really good
water
point, actually.
On the mountains.
Well,
or
apparently
you just hear a train.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of options here. Like, it's one of those. Apparently, this is like a method that works in a lot of different ways. Like, there's some study they did where like if someone listened to weird noises about like cigarette packaging or something, it like cut down the amount of like people who smoked. I don't know. I don't get it.
Coreception.
Yeah.
Makes me think of Friends when Chandler tries to quit smoking. You're a strong, confident woman.
Yeah. Like, it's just, yeah. Like, I am both mortified and also super into it. And apparently a lot of psychologists have made statements about how this is not good. So
I feel like dreaming about Coors is more of a nightmare, but that's just my personal taste.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I was scrolling through beer news for a while today, and then I got this, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, this is just ridiculous.
This might be the most scientific episode we've actually had. And I'm really
I'm enjoying it.
Favorite episode.
I'm super into it and also wildly out of my depth. Like, I have no idea how to talk about the science of any of this. So, like, we'll see. Like, next time, we'll see how I do.
Yeah, for sure. I'll take it to a little bit different direction. This gentleman is what's the saying? Not the hero we deserve, but the hero we needed. This is Frank Reynolds out of Wyoming. Frank was recently involved in an ATV accident and was missing for over 2 days. He was trapped underneath his ATV and he couldn't escape. When they got to Frank, they asked him, "How the hell are you still with us?" And Frank said, "Keystone." Frank survived 2 days off a Keystone while trapped underneath his ATV in Wyoming. And Frank is definitely the guy that we need to show up right now for some good news. I've actually found Frank Reynolds of Wyoming on Facebook and reached out to him. Hopefully we can get him on an episode one of these evenings to talk about his experience a little bit more. But if you personally know Frank, let me know, because I would love to chat with this guy and how he survived off a Keystone.
I know one of them, so I'll hit him up. Maybe he knows me.
Yeah, for sure. If we can get a hold of this guy surviving off 2 days being trapped underneath the ATV on Keystone, that's a guy I want to talk to for sure. So if anybody knows Frank Reynolds, hit us up.
Take that, Stone Brewing.
Yeah, for sure. Michael, it's an interesting process, this malting business. One question that I have is that we talked about a little bit. Hops are the craze, right? It's all about the hops. I think what I would say is the malt is kind of the unsung hero in all the beer we drink, because we don't hear a lot about it. But tell us a little bit, is there anything in the pipes? Is there anything that you guys are working on as a vendor to say, let's try to make the malt the subject? I mean, obviously it would have to be something big, right? So I don't want any secrets, but is there stuff like that are in the works on the malting side that could really change what we see and experiencing in a beer today?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something we're actually continually working on. Here in Vancouver, in our malt house, we have what's called the Malt Innovation Center, managed by Terry Ferendorf, who founded the Pink Boot Society. Very
Nice.
experienced brewer, and we're proud to have her running the show there. And every year for the last several years, we have worked very, very diligently to come out with new and interesting malt products from both to contribute additional malt complexity and give brewers more choices, whether that be a North American option that previously didn't exist, or an altogether new style of malt with a new cereal grain even. So we've really played around with a lot of different ideas. We had a small, essentially a pilot system, a custom pilot system made overseas that is a small replica of our large house. So it mimics bed depth. It's got all these bells and whistles. It's incredibly well set up we could spray cranberry juice on this stuff if we wanted to. So, but we can experiment with, like, one of the more recent things that we did was a malt called Brew Malt. That actually has a step in the process where we're allowing it to spontaneously ferment and create, culturing the natural microflora that came in off the field on this grain, and allow that to produce really a secondary flavor profile around it, and then killing it in such a way that we create flavor and complexity on the malt side while we preserve the characters that this microflora really was able to contribute through what is ultimately a product of anaerobic respiration. So malting is very, very aerobic. Airflow is the name of the game. So to introduce a step that's anaerobic is counterintuitive and actually kind of difficult to achieve in practice. So we're really stepping outside of the comfort zone in a lot of ways that are new and exciting and interesting. Another item would be a rye malt that we made a biscuit with. And I'm not aware of anybody else that's ever done that, but it tastes wonderful. I used to keep a shot glass of this on my desk, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with like the morphology of rye, but it doesn't have a hull on it. By the time we get to it, particularly once we put it through these roasting drums, we're coaxing out all kinds of biscuit, really nice bready bread crust kind of character and flavor. And when you don't have a hull on it and you've got a very nice friable kernel, that just means it crushes really readily. Like when you chew on it, it's not chewy. It just breaks into powder, and that powder is just like flavor. So it's very, very pleasant. So we're coming at it from a number of angles, and both how do you complement a hop profile and how do you make really malt the star as well.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I look forward to hearing more about what you guys are doing in the malting world. You mentioned in the earlier one, the 50,000-foot overview of what goes on, the relationship with farmers. It sounds like to me, and maybe this is just me reading more into it, but your relationship with a farmer is probably as strong or stronger than what it is with the independent brewers or the brewers out there. And that, it's obviously the futures market, so that you're going to buy what they're putting in the ground and that sort of thing. When they run into issues, do they come to you and say, hey, what do we do with the weather we're receiving now? Obviously, you're committed to it, right? If they produce the quality that they need to. And a big thing for you is you probably already got it sold as well in the planning that you guys do. You don't plan for anything that you're going to put on the shelf or end up throwing away. How involved are you with the farmers and what they may be dealing with during their growing season?
Very involved. So there's a direct point of contact where our procurement team is a direct and consistent resource for all of our farming partners. We're to the degree of, they'll be on a normal year actually out in the barley fields toward harvest, kind of licking their finger to the air going, harvest at noon on Thursday, trying to, when is the optimal time to bring this crop in, work through potential challenges. You can work through any details throughout the growing season and really kind of coordinate for best practice. So yeah, no, we walk that line, as I said, between being partners with both farmers and with brewers, and they're both held in very high regard. They're experts in their field, and we do everything we can to support our relationship on both sides of that fence.
Man, that is awesome, because the American farmer today needs all the help and the support they can get from companies like you that are experts in what they're trying to accomplish. So that goes well for me, because I've worked some days on some farms in Indiana, and it's not easy work, and a lot of the time you feel like it's one of those things that nobody appreciates, but definitely it becomes easier with partners like you that can help them out of tough situations. Because I will tell you right now, what a farmer will tell you is there is no normal growing season. It is different, and different challenges are thrown at farmers every year with whatever crop it is that they're trying to grow. So that speaks well to what you guys are doing with those farmers that are your partners.
Yeah, I agree. Well said.
Thought Jay was going to ask a question.
I know.
Go ahead.
too, yeah.
Sorry about that. I leaned in.
I was like,
I leaned in to read my notes.
Leaning forward. Yeah.
you like really leaned in. So I was
Well,
like,
wait for it.
I'm actually leaning in because I can't see my damn computer screen without my readers on. So sorry about that. Go ahead. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
we had
No, I think
thunder.
you.
This is
Yeah,
you.
there was one thing. It's not really a question, but I found very interesting that you guys opened like the year after Prohibition ended. Do you have any idea of how that came to be? Was it just like Prohibition's ended, let's just jump into this alcohol industry because it's never going to happen again, because that was ridiculous?
Yeah, there were some pretty large breweries in the Portland area, and I think essentially some siblings of ownership of those breweries kind of colluded to produce a malting company that could fulfill and support those breweries.
Nice.
So once prohibition was repealed, then the doors officially opened, so to speak. And we've kind of been on this site making malt ever since. A lot of iterations, a lot of infrastructure changes, a lot of improvements, but at the end of the day, the same goal.
Nice. I know you touched on this before we went live, but if anybody was in the area, can they visit your facility, or is it?
Dang, I was about to ask that too, because I'm 2 hours away. I was like, I want to get out there.
I know with pre-COVID and a lot of post-COVID things haven't changed yet. So being the word.
Yeah, unfortunately, due to COVID, site visits aren't something we're able to accommodate right now. It is something our brewing partners, we have in the past invited them to come and see where their malt is made and understand that process. And visibility and communication and understanding and education are all just foundational in these relationships with our partners. So I always, I've taken a lot of pride over the years, and we'll have teams fly in before and have taken tours of the malt house to really. There's a lot of benefit, I think, on both sides of that equation. From the brewing team, maybe there's new people that have never been to a malt house. They want to see how their primary raw material is made so that they can better understand it and be confident in making real-time adjustments. And it's their product to control. They have a lot of control over it if they understand how to kind of twist the knob, so to speak. So it's something that we've definitely done, but we're not B2C. We're business to business type of company, and your average brewer off of the street, we just simply would not have the staffing nor the policy, unfortunately, to be able to accommodate like tours to the public kind of thing.
Makes sense.
For sure. Let's go check in with Hoppy, get our parting shots, and what do we have to look forward to from Geeks, Hoppy?
So Geeks, like Matt said earlier, we released our Sharknado episode this week, and that is for Shark Week. If you're not watching Shark Week, you should be watching Shark Week. And they have Discovery Plus. You can do a free trial, and a lot of the more scientific Shark Week episodes are on Discovery Plus, and you can stream that. I watched one last night. It was called Finn. It's heartbreaking. It's terrible, but I think everybody needs to watch it. You don't realize we need sharks. I'm just going to jump on my pedestal real quick. We absolutely need sharks for the ocean. We need sharks for the land. They basically help keep balance in the ocean, and we still get a lot of our oxygen from the ocean, believe it or not, we do. So watch that, learn what you can do to help sharks. Sharks are awesome. Sharknado is also awesome, even though they're chainsawing sharks in the middle of Manhattan.
They're like the
it happens
movies ever.
sometimes.
Come on yourself.
It's the only time you're allowed to harm a shark. Well, if they're harming you, punch it in the nose. Punch it and push it down in the nose. But sharks kill 10 people a year, if that. And we kill 100,000 sharks every hour or something. It's insane.
Listen,
I live an hour from the shark bite capital of the world. I don't know anybody who's ever been killed or even bit by a shark. Sharks are awesome. So we just released that. Next week, we have a super cool comic book dude coming on he wrote about killer sloths and zombie date night. And Geeks is going awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's because sharks just attack and kill the tourist. They don't mess with the Floridians.
They don't attack and kill people. And in Florida, though, if you get bit, it's usually a case of mistaken identity and they leave. And they have said that there's been more bites in recent years at New Smyrna this year. And they think part of it is because of the chemical runoff from pesticides in your lawn, killing the seagrass in the intracoastal area, which is where the sharks usually go to find the fish. But if there's no seagrass, the fish have gone elsewhere. So the sharks have come closer to where the people are. And that's why there's more mistaken identity situations.
Yeah, I'm all for the sharks too. I don't. Celebrate Shark Week. Celebrate Shark Week, folks. Let's go check in with Brew Witch. Brew Witch, parting shots. What do we have to look forward to? The shower beer article is great.
Oh, I should.
So glad that my shower beer article has made international news and that everyone is giving rave reviews for it. It's a big deal, and I appreciate the positive reinforcement. I'm working on another article. I've been mentioning this for weeks. I'm sorry. My productivity is so low sometimes. I am working on a Chicago beer map, and I've gotten one neighborhood down. It's my favorite neighborhood where you can see Dovetail and other crowds like that. So I should have that out for you guys soon. If you really want to force me to get it done, let's say I'll have it out next week. We'll see. To be determined. Otherwise, I'm just hanging out. Going to hopefully get some fun brewery hangs this weekend. And then in next Friday, actually, I'm not sure if this crossed your guys' radar, but there is a brewery called Skeleton Key that's
we're
just
trying
outside
to get them
Chicago. Are you? Okay.
They got wiped out in the tornado.
Yeah, that's great news. Anyways, speaking of, there's a GoFundMe if anyone's trying to donate. So they're making a Pink Boots collaboration brew to raise money for them. So in 9 days or something, I'll be attending that brew day. So hopefully I'll have some fun things for you guys from that. I don't really know what the plan is. I think it's something like a hazy pale ale situation. So I think it's next Friday. I need to double check the date, but that is my big thing that's coming up. So hopefully I'll have more details for you guys then.
Bruce, see if you can get somebody from the brewery to join us maybe the show before. So maybe, I guess, next week.
I can try and reach out. Yeah, like it's being brewed at Workforce Brewery. Workforce. So I'm not sure who the connection is. Like I'm not in contact with any of the Skeleton Key people myself.
Yeah.
But we can try and figure something out.
Yeah,
Was
if you
Chris
find
from
something.
BottleShare going to be working with them?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't
Is
heard
he?
anything. I haven't heard anything.
Okay, to be determined. We'll figure something out anyway.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you can make the connection, we'd happily have him on and promote the cause, because that is, man, that's a disastrous situation when your production is wiped out at the blink of an eye like that. To a natural disaster is tough. So I look forward to that,
wrecked.
hearing more about that. All right, let's go check in with Mash. Mash, parting shots. Man, what do we have to look forward to from two things? Geeks and the All-Star Mash, because this dude is not done conquering the world yet.
Well, first of all, from Geeks, man, we had a lot of great stuff. We're gonna do our 1-year anniversary episode tonight, where we're gonna just kind of reflect on the past year. And man, to go beyond, yeah, we Comic-Con, we got press passes to Comic-Con Salt Lake City in September. Lauren is gonna be there. I got a good feeling about it. She's gonna be there. Great feeling. I'm not giving up hope until the date has passed. And even now I'm like, she's going to be there. But it was 2 days. Anyways, I'm currently working on getting Tara Reid on our show. It's because of Sharknado and stuff. We've had a good response so far to our Sharknado episode. So I've hit her up. I've hit the writer for Loki up as well. So I'm cautiously optimistic too. That
And James Gunn too, right?
Yeah, I've been hitting James Gunn up. He, no big deal. He liked one of our tweets today. So we're on the radar. But no, man, I'm just out here trying to make connections, trying to take over the world, so to speak. And today's episode is probably one of my most favorite ones, just from a knowledge standpoint and somebody who loves brewing beer. So it was great getting to talk with Mike and picking his brain a bit. I mean, you're wicked knowledgeable, so it was a pleasure. And maybe you'll see your boy on TV soon on Supermarket Sweep. Who knows? Hoping for that, but man, we're just to the moon basically. We're going places. We got merch. If you go to Threadless, search Hops Geek News, we got merch. Bottle Share. Make sure you give Bottle Share a follow. I help out with all their Twitter and the like, and there are so many great events for Bottle Share coming up. There's Nesttoberfest. There's a Brownie Bash for Pontoon. There is they're High Wire Brewing on the 24th. They're going to be at High Wire Brewing on the 24th with another collaboration there, and a couple of big collaborations that haven't been announced yet. So a lot of really great things. So make sure you give them a follow on all the social medias, help them grow, because last year we granted out $120,000 to people, and this year we're looking to go past that. So yeah, we're just helping out the craft beer community, and Q3 applications are open now. So if you know somebody who is in need, send them to the bottleshare.org and have them apply for a grant, and we'll make sure that they get taken care of.
Yeah, I might make that collaboration on the 24th. That's just down the road in Asheville. I'm definitely going to try to put that on my calendar to be a part of that. That'd be pretty cool to be a part of that and go down there and support Chris and what they're doing with Bottle Shares. So yeah, looking forward to that. Good information, Mash. Great content with the geeks. Always looking forward to that. I will tell you, Mash is not afraid to reach out to the big hitters in the beer industry, no matter where they're at, or in the geek industry, and find out if they're interested in coming on. So definitely appreciate that, Mash. He's got Mash the Closer. I don't know if you guys missed that or not. He doesn't have it on this one. This one back here with all of us, Mash the Closer. There he is. He closes the deal and gets the good ones on. Speaking of good ones, Michael, parting shots and what is coming out here in the recent future from Great Western Malting? Is there any new products that customers are already aware of that you can put out there and kind of promote and give a shout out to what you guys have going on?
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you. We do have 2 new products that we're actively launching actually right now. They're both distilling malts. Nice. One is a high enzyme distilling malt. We call it's our American Distillers series. So one will be really geared at making kind of an all malt whiskey, and that we call our non-GN American Distillers malt. And then American Distillers high enzyme for making your bourbons, your adjunct style of spirits. So very different styles of malt, so to speak, but we're excited to see how those splash into the market. there's more and more interest around them, and we're really just kind of starting to crack that distilling malt code. So we're really excited to see how well the market receives them.
For sure. And for anybody that's listening, Michael, do you have personal social medias that are open to the public, like a Twitter or an Instagram or anything like that somebody could reach out to you directly on?
I wish I did. I think I'm too old. No, I don't. I'm not on Instagram in any kind of public fashion at the moment. But my email is a great way, probably the best way to get a hold of me. If there's follow-up questions, interest, inquiries, we're always happy to listen to new questions and new ideas, and kind of welcome the input.
Awesome. Do you mind putting out your email for the listeners if they go back and listen or watching now?
Sure. It's mheinrich@gwmalt.com.
mheinrich@gwmalt.com. I guarantee if you hit him up with a question about malt, barley, anything like that you have going on in your brewing process, he can probably point you in the direction that you need to go. So great resource. Michael, we definitely appreciate your time tonight joining us. It's been a dive into the malting side of beer that I never anticipated covering on this show, I'll be honest with you. But I will tell you is the one thing that I judge an IPA on is, can I taste the malt base? If I cannot taste the malt base, I'm likely not going to go back to it. And you know just as well as I do, there's more IPAs out there today that you cannot taste that malt base than what you can. And that, to me, is a good sign of a great beer that has that balance that can pull it all off. So definitely appreciate, as a consumer, I appreciate what it is that you guys are doing for brewers and able to pull that through some very, very hopped up IPAs, double IPAs, and the Imperials alike. So appreciate what you guys do as a team and the Great Western Malting Company for sure. And again, thank you for your time tonight.
Oh, thank you. It sounds like you've got a pretty good palate, because I think it's important to have some malt flavor to stand up to that alcohol. So good
definitely
stuff.
Is, especially with the strong IPAs out there.
Yeah, and the charitable things that you guys are doing, I think, is outstanding. That's also a trait that we share within our company, where supporting those in need stands above all else, and that's kind of what's required as a good neighbor and a good partner. So really great to hear what you all are supporting and working towards supporting. And you bring up these things, and we're actually a part of some of these same sponsorship programs as well. So I think we're contributing them all to that Skeleton Key brew. So
how are you?
Our Country Malt Group, our sister company, and our distribution arm is effectively helping out with that part. So yeah.
Oh,
it's a small world.
Yeah. Thrilled.
It was crazy to see how quick their GoFund, because we covered it a few weeks ago, right when it happened, and their GoFund, their goal just kept getting met, and of course it doesn't cover a fraction of what they lost.
No,
they kept upping it, but it was amazing to see just the craft beer community in general just come together. And I mean, Jay even shared the pictures. It was, that tornado just destroyed it, and one of the owners watched it on the live feed. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's rough to be able to have to watch something like that. Michael, definitely appreciate you again. Maybe look forward to having you on again. The distilling side of this is interesting to me. As Hoppy mentioned, we haven't talked about the distilling side of alcohol yet, but obviously there's so many episodes that you can do on the beer side before you start reaching pretty deep. So we may reach out to you and talk a little bit more about distilling at some point in the future, because it's definitely of interest to me, and we have a lot of great connections in the distilling side of alcohol industry that we haven't even reached out to and started that conversation of. But definitely appreciate your time and getting us more informed on what happens on the malting side.
Well, thank you, and I'll look forward to joining you on a distilling topic then.
For sure. Hey, folks, appreciate you tuning in. Michael was a great guest, very informative on the malting side. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or anything, feel free to reach out. Obviously, a wealth of information. You can follow Hops News, as always, on any of the podcast platforms or social media networks at Hops News. You can find us there. The Feelin' Lucky crew put out an episode on Tuesday. Go check those guys out. Great crew. Lucky is still down and out without a computer. Supposedly he spilled water on it. I don't know that it was water, and probably an alcohol beverage of some sort. But he's still And take this as a word of advice. If you got an Apple product, make sure you get Apple Care. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a lot of damn money to get it fixed or try to replace it. So those guys will be putting out some more content. I don't know when Lucky's coming back on the live feed, hopefully very soon. But I do know they're starting to put out content again on the podcast. So go check those guys out. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and have a great night. And the next time you take a sip of the beer, focus on the malt profile that you're getting. I think you'll appreciate what's going on in the total product a little bit more. Have a great night, and enjoy responsibly. Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers.
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 Michael, love it, man. That was very informative, and definitely
That was
appreciate
awesome.
your wisdom there.
Oh, well, great. Are we still live? Are we still going?
No.
No. All right. That's funny how that happens. Well, thank you again. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the conversation around it. And like I said, I mean, if there's more topics, more things you guys would like to cover off on another Wednesday, I'm more than happy to join you. And you can be sure I'll have a beer on the next one.
For sure. I think we'll start to call you our malt expert, and maybe we'll have you on some more episodes, and maybe we'll even come up with some episodes that specifically focus on that, so we can maybe dive a little bit deeper into that subject, because it's always fascinating to hear what goes on that level that most people that consume a beer have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody thinks beer needs to be consistent, but wine can change year over year, right? We're all dealing with agriculture here. Why does one person get a pass and not the other?
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
So,
Definitely.
all right. Cool. Well, thank you very much again.
Yes, thank you.
I'll look forward to hearing from you.
All
Absolutely.
right, Michael. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right, Matt, I'll wait for that.
Yeah. Apparently, has anybody listened to Geeks? 'Cause